Now we're going to get to the fun part, where we're actually going to take the onlay and we're going to use it to apply it to a cake. What I want to run through with you is some pre-prep so that you can help this pattern transfer onto the cake successfully. Remember, the onlay is made out of silicone, so you can actually stretch it. You can stretch it, and when you do that in different directions, what actually happens is that this pattern kind of comes out of its design and lays back in. And you're incorporating a very micro thin layer of air behind it, which is a good thing. Another thing that I like to do is I'll grab the silicone onlay where there's no fondant, and I will run my fingers underneath it while stretching. And you can see how I can get this pattern to kind of lift up and lay back down into the onlay itself. All you're doing is ensuring that you've got something nice and loose. Now, you would think that if I lifted this onlay up in order to apply it to the cake, since we loosened it so much, that it would actually fall out, but it doesn't. The onlay will hold it because three sides of this design are being held by the silicone that we designed. So, here's our cake, and as you can see, I've got a couple patterns on there already, okay? Because I want to show you how to apply the onlay, number one, but how to do it when, after you've got one pattern on. Now, I'm going to be doing this backwards so that you can see it. Normally, you're going to be working very comfortably like this. I am going to have to do this backwards. Now, we made an announcement, and I'm sure you notice that the onlays are clear. And one of the big reasons why we did this was it's really, really going to help you line up the onlay with an existing pattern that's already been put onto the cake. Let me show you something very interesting about the onlay. If you notice, there is a kind of a flange on the top and the sides and on the other side, but the bottom there is no flange. And that's so you can always know what is the bottom of the onlay, which is meant to sit on a surface that's level with the cake that you can use to guide and stay level as you approach the surface of your cake, okay? So, notice the end of this pattern is going to be meeting up with the end of this panel right here. Well, I'm going to show you how to do this. What I do is I come in here just with one side, and I kind of park it right next to the design that's already there, and I'm just working on lining up one side. Now, you can look through that onlay and you can see for yourself, have I lined it up correctly? Is it nice and close? And then without stretching the onlay, just bring it around and then rub it, okay? So, when you are applying the onlay, what I want you to do is always concentrate on the perimeter. That's the bottom and the sides and the top, and push your fondant onto the surface of the cake. Then go ahead and concentrate where the fondant is. You can take a fondant scraper, a fondant smoother, put a little cornstarch on it, and you can use that, which is also extremely effective. And then what I want you to do is we're going to go into actually removing it, okay? So I'm just checking everything. That looks absolutely stellar, okay? Now, I was in England one time, And when I started to demonstrate onlays, I used to take the onlay off very slow. And there was an elderly cake decorator held in high esteem, and she wanted to pull off the onlay, and she grabbed that and she ripped it off like a Band-Aid. But I realized that that's actually a good strategy. So what I want you to do is to grab this, okay? If you want to go slow, sure, that's fine, but just pull that off, just like that. And if you have followed the steps that I've reviewed with you, it's a perfect application of this design right on the side of the cake. This side will never be exactly meeting with the panel that was applied before, because we have a blade that separates those designs. While the fondant is fresh, go ahead and just push those together, and you will eliminate the gap that would exist. And see, you can hardly tell where we stopped, where we started, each panel running into each other perfectly. Moving into the segment of this instructional video where we're going to be coming all the way around, okay? So I'm going to do this kind of quick. I'm just going to get my onlay lined up, bring it around. Get it on there and take it off. Do you see how quick that is? Oh no, I'm left with a gap. Let's talk about this, okay? This onlay has been made 2 times the length of pi. I did that because we did a lot of mathematical calculations, and we found that if I made this 2 times the length of pi, what would happen is that any even diameter cake that is 8 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, if it's exactly 8 inches or 10 inches or 12 inches and on, you should be able to apply these 2 pi panels, and this edge will meet with this edge. Well, this is an 8-inch cake dummy, and I simply just applied some fondant. And as you can see, we obviously must not have an exact 8-inch diameter, and that's going to happen to you all the time. So it isn't this magic formula that guarantees that you're always going to meet up and have no gaps, okay? But it does give you a clue. When you're making a real cake, you can trim that knowing what your crumb coat and the thickness of your fondant is going to be, so that you end up with a diameter darn close. And if you do so, these panels should meet up perfectly. So, what do we do when we have this gap? Well, what I like to do is I like to take my onlay and just kind of lay it lightly over there and look at the pattern. What part of my onlay can I use in order to fill this gap and make it look like there is no back of the cake. There is no area where it's going to not meet up. And I'm kind of lucky, because it seems as though if I were to make just this segment of the onlay, it seems like that's going to fill it pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and fill this onlay, just this section of it, and I'll be back, and let's see if I'm right. Let's see if I can fill this gap acceptably and make a really pretty cake. I've resheeted some fondant, and if you'll remember, what we want to do is we just want to fill one of these segments with fondant, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little mark, and because I can see through the onlay now, this is really great. Just going to make a kind of a mark a little wider than what I need. Okay? And then I'll just go ahead and cut myself a segment here. Okay. Going to apply a little cornstarch just to help us make a good transfer. Going to apply my micro layer of cornstarch over the side that I put down onto the onlay. And you know what? It's all the same. Push down with my fingers. Take a fondant smoother. Press lightly in the beginning. Then press and turn. See that? Wait for the lines to reveal themselves. I don't ever have to think about thickness anymore because I know a number 4 on this machine is going to give it to me every time. So that makes things wonderful. Okay? What do you think the next step is? I would say, as I always teach, apply the glue. Apply the glue now. Do yourself a favor. Make life easy, okay? Apply the glue now. Now we can deal with taking away the excess. I'm just going to simply take that off. Going to remove that. I'll remove that center and that center. What am I going to do with this? I'm going to put it right back into my fondant, work it in, give my tired fondant a drink, which will revitalize it and help me use it for a longer period of time. Okay. Stretch. Make that pop, okay? Remember the edges. That's what's important. Get those edges to kind of come out, get some air underneath it. Okay, I know that, I'm wondering, okay, just checking the stickiness of it. It feels good. All right. Remember, this is going to be a lot easier for you. I'm doing this backwards so that the camera can catch it. So I'm just going to take a near empty onlay, as you can see here. And I am just going to be applying one segment. Now I'm going to kind of line it up in the center over, I'm just watching to see that I can fit it in. I'm doing it just like I always do with the onlays. It being clear helps me a lot. You can see right through that, okay? Check, your alignment. Okay. Always work on the perimeters. You can see where the fondant is. Let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, look at that. I'm going to push this fresh fondant over to its neighbor on each side. And as you can see, I have filled the gap perfectly, okay? You tell me where that extra piece was, okay? There you have it. A perfect application of this highly popular pattern onto the cake. So that's how you fill gaps. We've explained the 2π length and how you use that. So now you know how you can recover if the panels don't fit perfectly, which most often they probably won't.